Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. We are very grateful to you for joining us tonight and for being part of our community. My name is Elric Walker. I am a board member of the Jung Association of Western Massachusetts. Before we begin, I would like to tell you a little bit about the Jung Association of Western Massachusetts. We are a mostly volunteer organization founded in 1996, concerned with promoting and exploring in community with others the ideas of the great depth psychologist Carl Gustav Jung. I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce you to our board members and to the members of our advisory board, and to thank them for all their good work on behalf of the association. Christine Olson is our president. Penelope Tarasuk and Erica Lorenz are current board members and advisors, and two of the longest serving members on the board. Erica served previously as our president. Both are authors and practicing Jungian analysts. Penelope's book, Polishing the Bones, is available. Erica is about to release her book, just finished, Body as Shadow, Jung's Method of Embodied Healing. We'll talk a little bit about that again because she is going to be presenting in April. Peter O'Brien is our speaker liaison. Janine Cooper is our treasurer and bookkeeper. Daniel Kinsey is our newest board member and is assisting with coordinating our local events. I serve as public relations liaison and promotional coordinator for the association. We are also grateful to the members of our advisory board, author, poet, and depth psychotherapist Dr. Ed Tick, who previously served on our board of directors. Ed Tick's latest book, Passage to Poros, is available now. Psychologist and therapist Dr. Carol Beauvais, who also previously served on our board of directors. Retired family therapist and historian Peter Williams, who also previously served on our board of directors. And Joe Coolin, who was the former publisher of Parabola magazine and who has recently become a children's book author. We thank all of them for their ongoing contributions and for their much sought after sage wisdom. Many kind thanks to Jonathan Capra, who is our webmaster, and to Janine Cooper, who will be providing Zoom and technical assistance tonight. Thank you, Janine. Upcoming, our local film and discussion series continues on Sunday, March the 29th at 4 p.m. This event is at the Smith College Campus Center, room 102. If you can get to the campus center, which is right on Route 9, there are some signs that will be in place to show you where we are. If you're local and you have not been to one of these events, please come. We will show a short Jung-related film, and then we'll open up for a general discussion. The discussion part is often the best part, as we get to come together in person to share ideas and information. It is always soulful and always encouraging. So that event is 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., March 29th. The next lecture in our series will be our very own Erica Lorenz, and she will present on Friday, April 3rd, 7 o'clock. And this will be the launch really for her new book, Body as Shadow, Jung's Method of Embodied Healing. So this will be a special event. Please join us on April 3rd. Check out our website for more information on these or any other of our upcoming events. You will also find in the archive section of the website videos of past lectures and events. The website is at westmassjung.org. After tonight's lecture, we will continue for about 20 minutes for further discussion. If anyone feels they want to continue our dialogue for a little bit longer, we'll see how everybody's feeling at the end. Our speaker does not always join us, for that, but is, of course, welcome to do so. I'm going to pass things over now to Penelope Tarasuk to introduce tonight's speaker.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Angie Brenner. I've had the pleasure of knowing Angie for almost 9 years, 9 going on 10 years, and when she first started at the Institute. And so I've had many roles with Angie, and it is my pleasure that she's here tonight. A little bit about Angie is she grew up in Richmond, Virginia, which I didn't know. And she came to Boston in the 90s to go to graduate school I don't know if you went to undergraduate, but you went to graduate school there. And you became a clinical social worker and a psychotherapist, and you continue to be in private practice in Melrose, Massachusetts. In her early career, she worked in the field of homelessness, substance abuse counseling, and trauma work. And I believe all of those things continue to inform her work. And she's the mother of 3 young adults, and she is in training at the Jung Institute and well on her way to being a Jungian analyst. She is just about finished all the writing and all the classes and all the supervision and all the analysis. And I get the pleasure of being a reader for the thesis she's going to write. So it's a pleasure. Angie, you said that during your time with children when they were little, you began to explore more deeply your love for mythology and poetry, and to begin to discover many Jungian writers that were neglected in your academic studies. And slowly she began to find her way into profound psychological shifts, both by becoming a mother and also her deeper interest in the psyche. She wanted to bring her love of Jung into her professional life as a psychotherapist, which eventually led to her, well, you were in analysis for sure, and you entered the training in 2017, I believe. And this work from the presentation that she's going to do tonight, actually, I think probably was stimulated from your ancestry. Your grandparents were Irish, yeah, from Donegal. And I'm half Irish, so I didn't know that. We have this deep love. Also, in one of your first seminars, you had studied Irish fairy tales, and there was anyway, it wasn't this fairy tale, but it was one called Sea of Life, I believe. Anyway, so this goes back almost 9 years in the making, and she has done tremendous work. I just want to read a little something after I read Angie's fairy tale paper. In training, analysts are required to write at least 1 fairy tale paper, I think 2, among many things. And many people don't realize the training is the analysis, a great deal of academic work, many, many case reports, and a thesis and many exams along the way. It's really a labor of love and in service of the psyche. When I first read Angie's fairy tale paper, this was my response. It is one of the deepest, most beautiful, and coherent pieces of writing that I've ever read, in a long time anyway. I've always felt that you were capable of weaving such a cloth. It demonstrates your knowledge, comfort, and understanding of Jungian psychology, fairy tales, alchemy, developmental psychology, relational psychology, and archetypal theory, and so much more. And Angie has been really a contributor in many ways to the training program, and has been a pioneer in many ways, particularly in addressing the patriarchy and deepening our knowledge and relationship to the feminine. So that was 5 years ago or so, I wrote that, and Angie has just continued to just develop. She will be doing, she asked, we had her present in 2023, and I was sure that whatever you do tonight will be more and deeper. And we asked her back because so many people loved the presentation. Some people missed it, and it was really a request that you come back and teach again. And it gives you a chance to deepen this material in yourself. She's taught in the public programs at the Young Institute of New England, including film salons, and used the documentary My Octopus Teacher. And she entitled her course Falling in Love with the Wild. And she's taught on the movie Wicked. And the theme of that teaching was the archetype of defiance. So she's beginning her work. Well, she's beginning her work on her thesis on Lilith, which is going to be quite interesting. So with that, Angie, thank you so much for coming. And I hope you have a wonderful time presenting tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really a little bit choked up from that introduction. And it's really wonderful to see friendly faces here and to be back with you all and sharing this fairy tale. It's been great to revisit it and prepare again to kind of get into it. It kind of just keeps opening out, the more I go into this material. I'm going to start off with just a moment to kind of invite us to be present with something that is very open-ended and could go a lot of different directions. When I was writing this fairy tale paper, it was the first paper I needed to write, as Penelope said, in my training program. And I started having these very frustrating experiences of feeling like I was getting it together and I had some ideas and I was following the thread, and then it would just kind of disappear on me. And I slowly realized as this kind of kept happening that I was in the presence of something that was teaching me about the nature of the story, the nature of the archetypal material that the story is touching on. And I began to realize it was asking me to surrender to a process of something that was tidal. It was going out to sea and then it was coming back in. And I needed to just allow that to happen and not try to hold on too tightly to it. So that's the spirit that I want us to enter into this evening. I'm going to start out by playing a song. And I'm going to ask us to just take a breath in and out and kind of let go of any preconceived notions that we might carry about this story, and let it teach us something new. Kind of shake out your shoulders, soften your eyes and your jaw. We're going to try to be in a state of receptivity to this material. Try to let what needs to arrive. So I'm going to play a song and then we're going to read the story together and then we'll get into kind of talking about what's here. Okay. We practiced this, so hopefully this will go well.
Is the good of sunny me tamalar is go William sarecht sha Is ni veden
Can everyone still hear me? Okay, great. So let's get into our story here. I'm going to read the story, try not to rush through it, and I want everyone to just kind of listen to what happens in your feelings and in your body as we go through the different elements of the story. This is a version that's adapted from the Shetland Islands by Helen Waddell in Folktales of the British Isles that I kind of merged with oral telling of the story from The People of the Sea by David Thompson. This is the story of the Seal Woman. One clear summer night, a young man was walking on the sand by the sea in the Isle of Unst. He had been all day in the hayfields and was come down to the shore, for it was the full moon and the wind blowing fresh off the water. As he came to the shore, he saw the sand shining white in the moonlight, and on it the sea people dancing. He had never seen them before, for they show themselves like seals by day. But on this night, because it was midsummer and a full moon, they were dancing for joy. Here and there he saw dark patches where they had flung down their sealskins, but they themselves were as clear as the moon itself, and they cast no shadow. He crept a little nearer, and his own shadow moved before him, and of a sudden one of the sea people danced upon it. The dance was broken. They looked about and saw him, and with a cry they fled to their sealskins and dived into the waves. The air was full of their soft crying and splashing. But one of the fairy people ran hither and thither on the sands, wringing her hands as if she had lost something. The young man looked and saw a patch of darkness in his own shadow. It was a seal's skin. Quickly he threw it behind a rock and watched to see what the sea fairy would do. She ran down to the edge of the sea and stood with her feet in the foam, crying for her people to wait for her. But they had gone. The moon shone on her, and the young man thought she was the loveliest creature he had ever seen. Then she began to weep softly to herself, and the sound of it was so pitiful that he could bear it no longer. He stood upright and went down to her. She turned and looked at him, terrified. Then she came a step nearer and held up her 2 hands to him. "Sir," she said, "give it back to me, and I and my people will give you the treasure of the sea." Her voice was like the waves singing in a shell. "I would rather have you than the treasure of the sea," said the young man. Although she hid her face in her hands and fell again to crying, more hopeless than ever, he was not moved. "It is my wife you shall be," he said. "Come with me now to the priest, and we will go home to our own house, and it is yourself shall be mistress of all I have. It is warm you will be in the long winter nights, sitting at your own hearthstone, in the peat burning red, instead of swimming in the cold green sea." She tried to tell him of her home in the sea, but he would not listen. Then he threw his cloak around her and lifted her in his arms, and they were married in the priest's house. He brought her home to his little thatched cottage and into the kitchen with its earthen floor. He set her down before the hearth in the red glow of the peat. She cried out when she saw the fire, for she thought it was a strange crimson jewel. For the first time she ceased her weeping and sat looking into the heart of the fire. It was the first thing that made her forget, even for a moment, the sea that was her home. All the days she was in the young man's house, she never lost the wonder of the fire, and it was the first thing she brought her children to see, for she had several children in the years she lived with him. She was a good wife to him. She baked his bread, and she spun the wool for the fleece of his Shetland sheep. The young man treated the selkie maiden with kindness, and their strange arrangement continued for many years. His love for his seal wife was unbounded, but though she seemed content, the selkie had a heavy heart. She desperately missed her home and her kinsfolk, and would often spend her evenings walking the shoreline and gazing longingly across the sea. He changed the hiding place of the skin from year to year, and he preserved it as well as he was able. It was not an easy thing for him to hide it, you will understand, for the children were growing up in years, and he couldn't turn without having them under him. The seal woman would question the children every day if they had seen anything like a skin about the place. But it wasn't until one September day they were out with their father stacking corn, and didn't one of the boys see his father coming with a seal skin and putting it into the heart of the first stack that they made. The boy wondered greatly why his father put the skin into the stack. Well, his mother was that day baking bread, and the boy went to her. "I saw my father put a beautiful, beautiful skin into the heart of the first stack of corn." He brought the skin to her and placed it in her hands. She gazed at it, and for a long time she stood still. It was warm dusk, and the air was yellow with the afterglow of the sunset. The air was full of little friendly noises from the sleepy talking of the swallows under the thatch. The door was open, and the warm smell of the baking bread came out to her. A small breath of wind rustled over the stacks and brought the sound of the sea whispering down on the sand. Far out on the rocks, the great waves broke in a boom, and close in on the sand the little waves slipped racing back. "This is my own skin," said she. "I am now going away from you. But as long as I live, I will keep you and fish every day." "What are you saying?" said the children. She said, "Come down to that smooth rock on the shore every day, and there will be fish there waiting for you. You will see me rising up in the sea, and I shall call to you, but do not go out to me in case you should be drowned." And then she took up the seal skin and went swiftly down the track that led to the sands. She was just out of sight when their father came in from the byre, and the children ran to tell him. He said, "What road did she take?" And they told him the low road to the sea. He took off running. As he ran along, he saw her dive into the waves, and he gave a loud cry for her to stop. For a moment she rested on the surface of the sea. Then she cried out with her voice that was like the waves singing in a shell, "Fare you well, and all good health befall you, for you were a good man to me." Then she swam away, but before she swam away, she did sing her joy of the sea. For a long time, her husband watched for her to come back to him and the children, but she had gone. "I am without a good woman tonight," said he. "Oh, isn't it a pity that she got that skin? For I was very happy when she was along with me." Early next morning, the children went down to the sea, and there they found every kind of fish on the rock, and their mother came and waved to them and called to them, and she went on giving them fish until they grew up and prepared for marriage. Her sons and her daughters married, and that is how the clan McCodrum came to this earth. One of the ways that people often come across this tale is watching it as part of the film, the John Sayles film, The Secret of Rowan Inish. And in that film, this is the epigram that comes along with this part of the tale. It says, "As for her, it is given to her that her land longing shall be sea longing, and her sea longing shall be land longing." So when I was writing this material up, I really felt again and again how much there was a sense of longing that was this pull between both of these worlds that were coming in contact with each other. So I'm going to want to talk about that more as we go along. The Secret of Rowan Inish, there you can see the it's based on a lot of the stories that David Thompson gathered when he wrote his book in the he walked around in the 40s and 50s to a lot of the coastal lands of Scotland and Ireland and the Faroe Islands, all the places that the sea legends were shared in oral tradition by the people there. And he shared them on a BBC radio program during those years and then published them in a book. I'm going to talk a little bit about David Thompson because he kind of became a companion for me as I was working on this story. And the stories that he gathered and the people and places that he gathered them from informed John Sayles' film, The Secret of Rowan Inish. So they weave in and out of the story. I do want to, before I start talking about David Thompson, I do just want to name something here about the tension I felt between some of the stories that were really designed for children and some of the stories that were, so they were kind of romanticized, and some of the stories that were actually very disturbing and dark. There was a real range of how dark things got and how kind of lighthearted and in tone they were. But as I was working on this, I really felt it was important to pay attention to the element of the trauma of her abduction and her captivity. And especially as I was working on this material now, I also really felt that this, there are raw nerves about these particular types of trauma in our collective right now, of abduction of the young feminine, objectification, exploitation, the themes about like burying the evidence. There are things that are really tender nerves right now. I'm not sure how much that will come into our discussion of the tale. I'm not going to spend time on that really as we go through the story, but it's in the back of my mind as we're looking at this about how dark and serious these kind of attitudes can be. But the story helps us hold a lot. It helps us see things from many different angles and to be present with very deep and difficult feelings without drowning in them. I think it's important to look at this almost like a dream, that all of the characters in the story are parts of our own psyche, and we can kind of relate to it in that way. So I want to talk a little bit about the writer, David Thompson, who wrote The People of the Sea. He was a companion, as I said, and also kind of a model of the kind of witnessing presence that felt to me like the right attitude to take toward this material. Also because my ancestors, as Penelope mentioned, are from Donegal. I'm from the lands where these tales were gathered, but I didn't grow up there. I grew up in the States, and I'm a few generations separated. David Thompson also isn't from there, but he visited there and he was enchanted by it. So I feel this pull on an ancestral level, and also I feel a bit like an outsider. So how do I approach this material without appropriating it or having it being entitled in my attitude toward it, but being attentive to it and kind of having a devotional attitude? So David Thompson gathered these tales in the 40s and 50s about the selkies, the Atlantic gray seals, who were the shape-shifting creatures who could shed their seal skins and walk in human form on the land. And he shared them on the BBC radio show. He had spent time growing up there, and these places still had a hold on him, and he had a longing to return. The stories that he tells and the landscape that he's moving through, this is a painting of the landscape in that area where the tale takes place. I wanted us to kind of experience the landscape a little bit. So his book kind of has this layered weaving in and out that kind of conveys the oral tradition that these stories existed in those times. And it shows the sense of mystery and longing and the feeling of empathic resonance that he had with the people telling the tale and with the stories themselves. And it helped me kind of enter into an empathic resonance. So there's something that I think about the people who were living at this time, that it was a time when they were in a culture that was kind of separating from a more mythopoetic way of living, kind of a pre-industrial way of living, when they were closer to the animal, closer to the myths that were rooted in the landscape and the sea. But the people were starting to, the young people were moving away, going to the cities, getting jobs in the factories. There were wars. So there was a real tension and a sense of separation and a longing to return. So I think that David Thompson, in gathering these tales, was speaking to that longing that people had to hear the stories and to heal that rupture. When he receives this particular tale of the seal wife, he's visiting the home of a family he's known for many years, and there's an elderly patriarch named Ronald Ian who begins to tell him the tale that he recognizes as the seal wife tale. Ronald Ian's young granddaughter, a young woman named Mary, is listening in. She's a young woman on the cusp of leaving home to get married or find a job in the city. But she has important choices to make. There's a lot of open questions about where she belongs, what she desires, who she is. And as she's listening to her grandfather recount the tale, she begins to cry. I think it's really a moment when you see how emotionally difficult it is to feel the pull, to feel the tension of being pulled to stay and pulled to go. Ronald Ian, as he listens to her, is very kind of disdainful and scornful, where David Thompson is listening and he's very kind of sensitive and responding to her with tenderness and helping kind of talk her through it. Her grandfather is kind of defensive. He wants David Thompson's attention. He wants to show him something. He interrupts the conversation with David and Mary, and he takes David up to his room to show him this treasure that he has hoarded away, the seal paw purse that he inherited from his father and his grandfather, that is considered to be a piece of selkie skin with magical properties, kind of incorruptible properties. So this hoarded away piece of mystery that he's showing is, I felt, an enactment of precisely the dynamics that feel so problematic in the story itself. They're showing the kind of negative and patriarchal attitude that wants to possess something that is an element of soul, and yet is treating the young woman right in front of him with disrespect. These themes are right there in this very interaction. So we're having this experience where a young woman is emerging into the world and trying to find a sense of an authentic path to her own destiny. She's maybe clumsy. There's some confusion but urgency and feeling. So that's the way she's responding to the mystery before her. So this interaction shows us these ways of responding to mystery that we get to see, not just in the story itself, but in the actual generational and gender conflicts that come up among the people who are living in the place that these stories arise from. So we could respond to mystery like Ronald Ian, who's possessive and kind of scornful, and yet, there's some empathy, I guess, that I have for him as someone who is an elderly person watching the young people turn their back on the old ways. That must feel pretty scary. And the scorn he's showing could be a defensive reaction. When David Thompson sees the sealskin purse, something happens to him, though, that takes this a little bit deeper. He has a memory, a trauma memory is triggered of when he was a child, and he was about 12 years old, and he left a party at night and was walking on the shore, and a squall blew in, and he took refuge in the hut of a fisherman that he knew. When he went into the dark hut and he was taking shelter, suddenly he became aware of a large, kind of shapeless, wet and whiskery mass on the floor, something alive, and he sensed a hairy head near his hand. In horror, he leapt onto the table, shrieking, and the fisherman who owned the hut burst in and violently clubbed the creature to death right before the eyes of the young boy. He was completely traumatized. As he helped the fisherman dispose of the body and clean up the mess, the fisherman was expressing his remorse for this unlucky murder of a selkie woman that he had just committed, bemoaning his wrongdoing. So that's a way of responding to mystery, total fear. David Thompson as a child, kind of horrified, shrieking, completely unprepared. Or the fisherman who lashes out violently and tries to, get rid of it, and only realizes later that was a mistake. Or we have David Thompson as an adult who is carrying the memories of this child, the guilt and the shame and the horror and the grief of what happened, and responding to that by going back and gathering the memories and seeking to understand and seeking to serve the selkie, seeking to serve her story, to serve the creature that died in that incident. So I think it's just a wonderful model, of all the different ways that I think I can relate to all of those different possible ways of responding. And I also can see which one I want to try to cultivate more. So let's get into the tale. So the story starts out in this time of liminal space on the shore of the sea where two worlds are coming together. It is a magical moment. It's almost like, I feel that moment is almost like a mandala. You have the full moon, you have the midsummer night, it's the height of the solar, it's the height of the lunar, it's midnight. There's kind of all of these elements. It's on the shore between the sea and the land. It's like a mandala showing the contact between all of these different opposites. It's like a boundary that's very charged, a threshold of the potential for some transformational experience to happen. And at that boundary, Tyson Yunkaporta, who's an Australian Aboriginal writer, says this boundary can be a place of kin making or kin breaking. We have an opportunity here to come into relationship, but what happens is kind of overshadowed. That potential is overshadowed with a kind of tragic misunderstanding or misrecognition that becomes kind of the original sin of the story. There's a sense of fatefulness here. I have this quote here that I want to share by Donald Kalshed, who talks about liminal space when he's writing about trauma. He's a trauma specialist, a Jungian trauma specialist. Many of you, I know his work. He talks about liminal space. That is a co-inherence of two worlds and the magic that floods into the potential space where they meet. To experience this liminal area, which is neither one world nor the other, but both, is to touch that mysterious third thing that is the very essence of ensouled living. So that magic that floods the space when there's an opportunity for soul to suddenly be revealed is a very tender moment. There are a lot of opposite pairs in this kind of mandala that I'm envisioning. There's the feminine, the masculine, lunar and solar, unconscious and conscious, chaos and order, sea and land, civilization and wilderness, animal and human. I mean, we could really go on, the human and like the otherworldly. There's so many different differences and so many different places where they are touching each other and they have an opportunity to come into relationship. I do want to say something about when opposites are presented as gendered pairs. I think a lot of this story is about opposites that are, as you know, between kind of a male and a female figure. When often gendered opposites can be kind of stand-ins for an array of different opposite pairs. But putting opposites in gendered terms brings some trouble. You know, it can kind of bring in imbalance of power that skews the dynamic between those opposites that really need to flow. But it also shows how the gender opposites have their own tensions, and it can reveal things about those gendered opposites. It can harden the polarizations that we might have in our imaginations about gender, about sexuality, and kind of get in the way of our realizing that all of the characters in the story are us. It can cause us to have preconceived notions about what things should be like. But really what we're looking at is just simply the need to understand that there are two aspects of psyche that are divided, they're polarized, and each are about to be initiated into an overwhelming experience of the other, that both of them in some way will feel captured. One captured by love, the other captured by power. There's a task to be mutually transformed, to have an initiatory experience of encountering the other and entering this vessel of the cottage they're going to live in together and enter a shared life together. But what's going to happen? Do the power dynamics cause that potential transformation to collapse into kind of domination and alienation? Or is there redemption possible? So it's an experience of emergence. So I think emergence is a particular kind of archetypal experience that is a very powerful moment when something new first arrives in the world. It is a moment of coagula in the alchemical concept of solve et coagula, which is about dissolving and then coming into form. This is the moment when something that has been dissolved, has been in a state of kind of undifferentiation or chaos, comes into being, and there's an opportunity to become a me. It's the irresistible urge to become what we truly are, as Jung put it. It's a time when there's innocence kind of hovering, there's an aura of innocence, and it is an innocence that is coming into kind of is subject to the conditions of the material reality that it's entering into. And there's an opportunity for it to be initiated by the specific experiences that it might have, that she might have. But it's very vulnerable. So I want us to just kind of take a moment and think about the times, any times that you felt something new was happening, and that your soul was being revealed in a brand new way, and what kind of conditions you really needed to be met with. I think it's also important with emergence to realize that something that is new, a new potential that's coming into form, it might emerge as a beautiful maiden, or it might emerge as a wet and whiskery, scary something, you know, that both are ways that things can emerge out of the unconscious, out of the undifferentiated, and begin to, and kind of arrive in our lives. So I think that part of the story is about the fantasy that we could separate these expressions of mystery, that we could have the magical without the uncanny. That's part of the problem here. I think he doesn't want to have the sealskin, the farmer. He wants to have the magical maiden. And we can see how that happened with David Thompson's experience. So I think that's one of the takeaways that I get by kind of holding the fairy tale itself kind of in the larger context of how it arrived with in David Thompson's book. So there's something vulnerable and real. It's emerging. And what it requires is the blessing of recognition. That's the necessary condition for the soul to emerge, to enter a state of becoming. I have a lot of theory stuff on some of these slides that I'm going to kind of skip over a little bit. I want to stay as much as I can with the story and just bring the theory in where it feels like it really opens something up. But I want to I'm hoping that you can kind of look at the art and let yourself feel the aesthetic experience if you can. So the blessing of recognition is what is needed. And that is one way of thinking about that is, this is from the Rilke poem, one of the sonnets to Orpheus, a space hollowed out by love. There's an article I used by the Jungian analyst Amanda Dowd, who says, if the space into which an imaginal conception might arrive has already been filled by a fixed idea or demand, then one's nascent sense of self has no place to come into. I just love this particular piece of art because it gives a sense of spaciousness and the sense of what I feel could happen, that the selkie maid could have an experience where she is able to kind of separate from her experience of what she's used to and come into an experience that is her own individual experience, kind of her own adventure, and be recognized as an individual being. But if that space where she's entering into is already kind of inhabited or occupied by a fixed idea or a sense of what she's expected to be, that can collapse the potential space. I spent some time looking at the Graces. This is Antonio Canova's sculpture of the Graces, as an example of the kind of undifferentiated feminine that is dancing on the shore of the sea. I explored a lot about the myth of Persephone, of Kore, when she was abducted. There are all of these different versions of the young feminine. And grace, I think, is an important element of what the young farmer experiences when he sees the maidens dancing on the sea. It is like an attribute of the feminine. But what happens is his shadow falls on her skin. So what does that mean? His shadow falls on her skin. It's like a moment when she's stepping into the light, into the dance, a representation of innocence and grace. And there's some kind of shadow projection that falls into the space between them, like an overpowering projection of something objectifying that interrupts the individuation potential of what she could be experiencing. And she kind of loses the ground of subjectivity that could have happened, that could have come into shape, that could have coagulated in that moment. So something else is seeded in that moment that unfolds. So here's a couple of pictures. I have a lot of children's books. I've collected children's books. There are many of them. My favorite one is Mordecai Gerstein's The Seal Mother. He was a wonderful children's book writer and illustrator from Western Mass. Jung said, where love reigns, there's no will to power, and where the will to power is paramount, love is lacking. The one is but the shadow of the other. This is the actress who plays the Steel Woman in The Secret of Rowan Inish. So she says no, but he will not be moved. That's what's going on here. There's a relationship that becomes one of domination. There's a psychoanalytic study called The Bonds of Love by Jessica Benjamin, who talks a lot about love and domination and the perplexing entanglements in patriarchy that often arise in the confusion of domination and love. She says the relationship of domination is fueled by the same desire for recognition that we find in love, that blessing of recognition. But why does it take this form of domination? She sees it as a form of differentiation, the differentiation that needs to happen as we come into ourselves and begin to incarnate, but it becomes alienation. What is necessary is for the other to make a difference, not to just be carried along in someone else's ideas about what is needed, but to be allowed to stand beside him and have a voice that's heard. So I don't want to get into the theory here too much, but I just want to kind of look at this art and the distress. This is really kind of this intensity of the distress of feeling a persecutory experience, and really feeling panicky about it. It's a foreclosure of the potential space of becoming, and it's a failure of primal trust. In Donald Cowshan's terms, he says, innocence needs to be initiated by experience, but when that experience is, he calls it precipitous and calamitous, the potential space is collapsed, and what could be an initiation becomes a ruptured initiation process. But what happens when she arrives in the cottage is she is able to have something happen with the fire. So this is the key moment. When she's been abducted, she's terrified. She's brought unwillingly into the farmer's house, and she sees the fire, and its beauty and sense of mystery and sense of heart arrest her attention. The wonder she feels comforts her and eases her distress and keeps her in touch with herself and with her own capacity for awe and sensitivity to beauty as a connection with the numinous world. It kind of captivates her. It becomes a location of becoming when the relationship really can't be a safe place of becoming. She receives, I think, the blessing of recognition from the fire. And new potentials are able to arise even in this troubled relational field. And children can be born. She's able to bring them to the fire and teach them how to see what she sees. In the narrative structure of the story, when she sees the fire, she agrees to stay. It's like her no becomes a maybe yes. It becomes a kind of a yes. The aesthetic arrest that she experiences begins to transform her. She begins to, I think she needs to take in these qualities of the fire. She sees something that is different, a difference that she needs to be in touch with, other, that is something she hasn't experienced before. She begins to spend time with the fire. And I think the fire, we could think of it as passion. We could think of it as will. She needs to have will of her own. She's subject to his will, and she doesn't have will of her own. But really, I think one of the important things is that she has now both a yes and a no. So the tension of the opposites, these competing longings, is now within her. It's not just completely projected and polarized. It's like a tension between him and her. She both wants to stay and wants to leave. She's having a new experience. So we're having this, as for her, the land longing shall be sea longing, and the sea longing shall be land longing, begins to assert itself. I also think, Cowshed talks about in trauma how the human being who is in a traumatic situation where human relationships are failing, he says the frightened soul is sometimes able to find refuge in the archetypal world as a location of becoming. It could be in imagination or a dream world, in nature or the elements, or in the aesthetic depths available to the artist. The person is able to kind of find a space outside of the troubling relationships and the painful experiences where they can go and begin to grow and have a space where they can become themselves. So let's talk for a minute about the seal skin and just touch on what it means. This is a really important image in the story. It's kind of the hinge when he gets the seal skin, he's able to keep her and overpower her and make her do what he wants her to do. And then when he's hiding it away from her, she's not able to have her own will. So it represents her connection with her native element and her ability to be free. Her ability to have her seal skin is a way to have a boundaried self, to have her own yes and her own no. It's also, the skin is the place that we touch the other, that we experience sensuality and intimacy and really encounter the other in a sensory and emotional way, in an authentic and freely chosen way. So it feels very ironic that he's keeping her from being able to really contact him by taking away her skin. All of these elements are, there's all of the elements of the sea that are represented. The place that she longs to go are kind of held as potential in the seal skin. If she could have it, she could have those elements back. But it also represents the elements that the husband sees in her. He sees her as his opportunity to hold a piece of the sea, to hold a piece of the mystery. So to him, she basically is the sea. So what are these elements? This is kind of just a picture of the vulnerability of being without her skin. So the sea is a place of transformation, of feeling, of depth, of soul, of imagination. It dissolves distinctions and creates mergers. As I'm talking about these things, just imagine these are all the things that the husband perceives and longs for when he listens to his wife's voice, when he sees her, when he hears her voice that sings like a shell, when he sees her beautiful form. These are the things that he is being pulled toward and imagining he could be connected with by having her in his home, animating the structure of his home. The ability to create mergers that could be potentially ecstatic or annihilating, that are generative of all life, or could be extinguishing to consciousness and life. There are these archetypal kind of amplifications of the waters of the sea, the spirit of the chaotic waters of the beginning, the matrix of all potentialities, powerful reverberations of mystery where there's things we can't see, but we know there's so much going on under there. It's enigmatic. It ranges from the chaotic, the waters of the Leviathan that are threatening to swallow us up, to the baptismal waters of rebirth and transcendence. It's where everything begins, the womb of life to which everything returns. But to her, the sea is something different. It represents herself, her native being, her own way of making sense and experiencing herself in connection to depth, relation with her own kin, a place where she is her own shape. But in order, kind of paradoxically, to become more particularly herself, I think the story is saying she must emerge from her own native element and have this individual experience in a different landscape. But all the while she is longing to return to the seal shape, to the sea, as a reunification with herself. I'm just amazed by, even in these children's stories, a good illustrator can capture a real sense of longing, and you can kind of see the obliviousness, of the husband. It says his love for his seal wife was unbounded. She seemed content. And it just seems that he's not paying attention. When I look at this, she's not paying attention. She would wander on the shore. What was he noticing there? So I struggle with this, the husband figure, and the poignancy of her longing. So one of the things that helped me work on this, work on the tension that I felt, was this particular poem. So let me share this with you. This is Rilke, translated by Barrows and Macy. Go to the limits of your longing. God speaks to each of us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out into the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, Go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like flame and make giant shadows that I can move in. Let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand. So I feel like this poem is inviting us to feel the full range of experiences going on here that are part of, I think it's saying, they're part of open-hearted and embodied living. And that in our embodiment of all of it, the beauty and the terror, something divine is playing, is being worked out in giant shadows that we cast, even with our failures and our misfortunes and dangers. Even these are places that God lives and manifests. And I feel like it's showing me that longing is constellated by the self, by God, to pull us toward our destiny, into the journey, toward incarnation of our full selves in the world. So the human task is following one's felt sense of longing to its farthest extent. Don't hold back. With your heart and soul and might, go to the end of to the limit, the very limit of your life. And I love the idea of taking God's hand into this mysterious and serious adventure. It's like a consolation, to feel, to lessen loneliness and fear, and to access the support of a sense of meaning and come in contact with the depth dimension. All right, let's talk for a minute about the child. We're going to talk about the child, and then we're going to talk about the masculine transformation. So in clinical practice, the emergence of dream children, the child in the dreams of the patient is a sign that something important is happening in the therapeutic relationship, when there's enough trust and safety established, and it's a manifestation of the transcendent function, the manifestation of the transcendent function par excellence, Jung said. Jung talks about the divine child as a seed of wholeness in the individual, a prefiguration of the God image in the individuation process. So there's some beautiful theoretical statements that Jung makes about children. But I want to talk about the child in this story, and what is it like for children in relationships of dominance or troubled marriages, like that of the seal woman. They inherit something unresolved, and in their play, they're kind of embodying the possibilities of the redemptive developments in the dynamics between the inner parents, like the possibilities for renewal can be revisited by the children in a new way. They show kind of the opportunity to bring new heart, new soul, to live with one's whole being. All of that is becoming reworked when the children arrive and bring different ways of engaging with the particular dynamics here. But they're experiencing this split situation between their parents. The identificatory love the child feels for the mother makes her disempowerment and her trauma a wound for the child as well. Child internalizes the mother's distress. But he also identifies with the father and feels love for the father and empathy for the father's need for connection with the mother. In almost all versions of this tale, it is the children who must find and bring the seal woman her skin. Her loss and her need to reunify with herself becomes a soul task for the children. As they're growing, they're kind of moving toward the fulfillment of this task. And I'm just struck by this dilemma, to act for love for the mother, to give her back her skin, is to sacrifice the mother as an available object for the child. So the child is growing, and I feel like the sacrifice is premature. I think I always come back to that. I try to resolve this and reconcile myself to it, but I just feel this is too early, developmentally, for the child to have to sacrifice. And I wonder about kind of parentification of the child, and in situations where the parents aren't attending to each other, if the child, a sensitive child, might feel pulled to give up her own needs to care for the parents. Look at this illustration. I feel like, you can see the shadow the father's act is casting on the child, into the child's room. He's walking away from the mother. She's protesting. He's turning his back on her. This is kind of the setup for the child to feel this pull. And it's when the child is able to act on that moment that the turning point in the tale comes. The child becomes a true actor, a true agent, who's able to respond to his own ethical instinct, an empathic instinct. His own ethical and empathic being kind of reaches a certain point of maturity, and he's able to listen to something in himself about what feels like the right thing to do. So can this masculine be transformed? I mean, what does that look like? We have kind of a masculine figure here who, as the picture showed, is just turning his back on the sovereignty of his wife. What kind of love is that? This is another poem by Rilke. Work of the eyes is done now. Now go and do heart work on all the images imprisoned within you, for you overpowered them, but even now you don't know them. Learn, inner man, to look at your inner woman, the one attained from 1,000 natures, the merely attained but not yet beloved form. I feel like this image, we could look at it like, almost like analyze it like a dream. It's like he has this passion for her, and he's appealing to her, but she is impassive and has her back turned. It's like she can't even hear him. He's directing all of his love and longing right toward her back, and she is holding her child's head. They're looking, you can't really see it, but they're looking at the fire, immersed in what's happening in the fire. One of the things that I think is interesting about this story, look at all the shadows, first of all, but also look how there's a pitcher and a cup behind him. It's like in his unconscious are these vessels of water that could be poured out and where water could be received. What could happen with the feeling state is there inside of him, but he's directing his passion toward her, and he needs to come into relationship with his own inner sense of love and empathy. And just look at this tension here. Her back turned on him, his back turned on her. So I spent a lot of time trying to understand animus theory when I was working on this tale. And there's a lot that we could say. I'm actually not going to get into it too much here, because animus theory just gets really complicated. It can get really essentializing about like what things belong to the masculine, what things belong to the feminine, how to, different people who have different genders experience those things within themselves. What do they project onto others? I think it's an interesting and important thing for us to learn how to understand. But I think the important thing for the purposes of this tale is that, in Jungian terms, what we call the anima animus, the contrasexual archetype, is really considered to be something that comes from the self, that is pulling us into something that we don't have, that we feel is other, that we need to come in contact with and have a deep and powerful experience with. And Ulanoff writes, it's a moment when reality beckons to us in our particular colors. It's really about something we need for our own wholeness that we don't yet identify as part of ourselves. So we're projecting it onto someone else and then feeling powerful feelings for them, whatever those feelings might be. She says, anima or animus forms a bridge across which contents of the self come to address the ego, to put questions to our very existence. These questions seem to issue from another who says, in effect, you must deal with me, confront me, respond to me, even if it is to reject me. But here I am, and you cannot escape. So I found comfort again in poetry. A beautiful poem by Mark Nepo, who wrote this poem about Monet and his paintings of the stacks of wheat. He said, he kept looking and looking as warmth left the trees, as waves remade the sea, as loss slowed into peace, undoing hard men. He watched strange flowers open where only silence had been. He focused so far in that everything shimmered. He proved by the strength of his attention that nothing can keep light out. It's a small leap to say that love works this way, a light that lives in the bones, just waiting to be seen. It felt like the heart of the corn and this image of the haystack in this poem really brought something together for me about how the masculine figure, the farmer, is burying something that's really a religious impulse. It's kind of related to this agricultural, cycle of the seasons. It's a religious impulse to sacrifice oneself, and set aside one's own needs and ego demands to focus very deeply on the other, to focus to so far in that everything shimmers. It's that solar element that I feel like the seal woman is needing to encounter that is getting misplaced here by him burying the seal skin instead of entering into the religious attitude that his profession, might lead him to relate with. So it's like he's keeping it in shadow, and yet he's attending to it. He keeps burying it. Every year he's moving it. He keeps circling it. There's kind of a fund of psychic energy that goes to keeping it in the shadow. Where the animus figure that he could be, that's reality beckoning in her own particular colors, it's kind of not allowed to come into being. So it's kind of this, that's the ruptured initiation process where things kind of collapse, where they could become a beautiful moment of sharing a meaningful connection where they both could kind of become more mutually transformed. So here we are back to the moment of grace where she receives the skin from her child, and just look at him, look at his stance. He feels so proud of himself. It's like he's really come into this moment, and it feels so poignant that what's about to happen is she leaves. Once she gets her skin back, neither chains of steel nor chains of love can keep a selkie from the sea. So I want to kind of wrap up my part of this here and open up for questions. But I just want to touch on a couple of things that feel important about the ending of this tale where she leaves. You have a moment where you really see this feminine emergence on a higher level, where earlier in the tale, it was characterized by innocence and a lack of differentiation. Now she is in her sovereignty. She's in her power. She knows who she is. She's not dissociating the grief and the loss. She knows that she's leaving and that there is grief for all involved, for her children, for her husband, and for herself. She's holding the complexity of all of that and still doing what is most aligned with her authentic self. I think yeah. So there's a metanoia. A metanoia means a change of mind and heart. Jung said it signifies a point where an inner authority makes itself known, and it emerges from the roots of our felt experience and from the heights of metaphysical command. I think that's what's happening with the child. The child is the agent of metanoia. It is feeling from the roots of his felt experience and the heights of metaphysical command something needs to change. And the farmer husband is kind of left to be schooled by the suffering of that. Like in the poem, it says, as waves remade the sea, as loss slowed into peace, undoing hard men. There's this sense that he will be humanized by this loss. He's kind of in this sobered repentance. It's actually, I think, the right relationship with the woman, the seal, ocean, the unconscious, the numinous. Losing the power to coerce the other, he's gaining the potential to come into relationship with the real other. And he's becoming humanized. It's kind of showing how the patriarchal project of regarding nature and the feminine will ultimately also be defeated by the law of life. The return of the soul to its source. This Rumi poem I sang to my children when they were little. Night goes back to where it was. Everyone returns home sometime. Night, when you get there, tell them how I love you. So there's this unavoidable truth in the story that the seal wife is modeling about the ultimate reality that underlies our lives. Everyone returns home sometime. This is a realm of mystery that is not only her native element, but it's also ours. The illusion of establishing durable structures against the tides of life and death that we kind of build and cling to will one day dissolve. The inevitability of her return to the sea shows a deeper law that relativizes the patriarchal power that has been held over her. And the tale's ending proposes a new way to relate to this reality where grasping is surrender and mutual recognition, the truth of mutuality is faced. The news of difference is faced. A relationship of love and connection is formed and maintained between the mysterious depths and the earthly, between consciousness and unconscious. Night, when you get there, tell them how I love you. So I think this is saying love is a link. Our relationship to ultimate reality and its mystery and its potentially fearful chaos becomes different, qualitatively different, when that realm is inhabited by a beloved, someone known and deeply trusted, who loves and knows us and with whom we share a commitment and desire for sustained connection. So I think the essential forgiveness that I sense in this tale really comes from the descendants. We are all the descendants. We are all both connected to the otherworldly and to the human. And the selkie gives us instructions on how to maintain a relationship with her. At the end of the tale, she tells her children, come to the shore of the sea and come every day. I will be there. I'll be offering you riches from the sea. I'll be there to wave at you. Don't come into the sea, you'll drown, but come every day. So it's kind of this possibility that we could have this fruitful and disciplined practice of relating to the unconscious, of relating to the mystery, like an active participation with that. And it feels like it's showing that it's all about having a truly loving relational connection, of establishing a kind of a tidal pulse, in our relationship, just like we kind of started with. We have to allow ourselves to dissolve into the mystery and allow it to come back. We're also the farmer's children. I mean, I think we can all feel that place where we want to grasp it. We want to, we're afraid to let go of it. We have willfulness. We don't want to allow the unconscious to reveal its shapes in any old way it wants to. We want to be in control of it. And I think it's the sincere and persistent quest for relationship, for surrendering that willfulness and establishing a dialogue that's mutual. That's what makes us whole. So the end of the tale kind of shows that nature does not abandon the human and does not find the human beyond love. I think that's why David Thompson is such a wonderful figure because he's a perfect example of a descendant. He's coming to the table by the sea over and over again. He lives in the modern world, but he keeps returning to the altar at the edge of the sea, longing to know more about her, longing for her stories, attentive, devotional. He can't unmurder the selkie that was killed in the fisherman's hut. He's not able to expiate that guilt, but his returning and searching allows him to illuminate her, to illuminate the beautiful dimensions of what was destroyed. So I'm going to end there and open up for questions. I have a poem I'd like to read at the very end before we go into the kind of post meeting time, but I want to give space for questions. And I know I've taken a lot of time. So I'm going to stop share and open it up for questions. Comments, anything that struck you about the story. Think about, I really would love to hear what you felt about what the story is saying, what troubled you, what bothered you, what you're struggling with, what you felt big feelings about. I'd really love to know. I see Rosemary.
Yes, this is actually her daughter Eve.
Hi,
And
Eve.
hi. Oh my God, I just love your commentary so much. And I wonder, did you say you have a book or your that includes these thoughts of yours?
No, I don't. I wrote a paper. I wrote a paper about it for trainings.
Oh, it's just incredible the way you speak, and there's some kind of elegance in the acceptance of these dynamics and these paradigms that we're stuck in with our male and female sides of self, but also with men and women. And I love the way that you put it out with such clarity. It's just really healing for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Eve.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think there is something that is really about the healing potential of this tale because it draws us in to wonder, more and more about what's happening. Does it have to go this way? Is there another way for it to be? I think that pull to kind of puzzle over it is a healing of the rupture. Like something has been ruptured, but it's the attentiveness that we bring to it that is the healing factor, I think, is the healing experience.
Well, it makes me wonder.
You're muted.
I'm not muted. It makes me wonder about your wild nature. Does it really mean that you have to lose the wild nature to be with somebody?
Right.
Right? Or do they have to be also a selkie, you know?
Mhm.
But then where's that polarity in the learning and the sad feeling of like, oh dear, why does she have to give up? Why does the wild feminine have to be given up to have a family? And
Mhm.
right, and where's the rewilding of the family? And the,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Mhm.
I love that, the rewilding of the family. I want to read that story. I want to read that story. Yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly it. It's like, how can she, well, for me, I felt like, how can she stay in a place where she's been held
Captive.
hostage and not allowed to be herself, not allowed to be her wild self? But how can she leave at the
Mhm.
same time? Why does she have to choose? The story is really presenting it that way. And I think it's very hard to sit with. That I think that's just part of the position that the tale puts us in, that it doesn't resolve that easily. So we have to kind of stay with it and try to imagine further developments that could happen.
Well, yeah, and it makes me think about the man in the story stealing her. He feels so unlovable. He does
Right,
not believe he can enchant her. He does not think that she would love him for his true self. And he's lost the arts of seduction and love and courtship. He just wants to grab and take. But it's also this profound thing of he's not very skilled, it seems, in the arts of love, and he really must not love himself or believe in himself.
right,
That's
right.
sad.
Like he's really lacking something. He doesn't I think that's why I really, when I had an aha moment when I saw in that illustration how the pitcher of water is behind him. It's like in his unconscious, he has more than he thinks he has, and he's looking to her for it. But I love that. That's so brilliant. And I didn't even notice that until I was preparing this presentation today. I was like, wait a minute, what's that behind him? So,
Thank you so much. I'll let go of my
yeah, you're
microphone.
so right. Yeah, you have to see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the fire and the water.
Mm-hmm.
That I mean, they really can't exist together.
True. Yeah.
They can exist with a boundary separating them, like boiling water,
Mm-hmm.
But that's a very interesting opposition there. Can you play with that a little bit more?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think there's really something about the fire that this selkie cannot have in her native element, right? It's not possible. So the fact that that's what captures her, that's what gives her this moment of pause that arrests her attention and says, wait, now I want to stay. There's something here that isn't just a captivity, it's an opportunity for something new to happen to her. And we could imagine kind of all the different elements that fire could represent. I mean, I listed a few of them. But there's just something very potent. I think, in the traditions of the people they have that live here, the woman's role is to get up in the morning, and it's called s'moring, right, where she says prayers over the fire, and she rekindles the ember, and then she puts it to bed at night. So the woman holds the relationship with the fire that ensouls the household. It connects them to an axis of meaning, you know, that that centers them in kind of all of that hearth archetypal energy. So she has to have that experience here. She can't have it in the sea. And I think that's an important element of this tale that helped me kind of reconcile a little bit with like something is going on here that she needs to have happen. It's really actually important for her. And I think over time, one way I thought of it is she needs to build more structure through the routines of taking care of the fire and cooking with it and everything. She needs to build her will so that she can take action on her own, which she can't do at the beginning. So I think there's a lot of different ways that we could think about that. It's almost endless. I think it's a really important element that you're bringing up.
Yeah,
Do you have any thoughts you wanted to that were coming to you?
well, the fire is the cooking,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
first sees it's the other. It's an other.
right. That's right.
It captures her.
Right,
Yeah, yeah,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
And the way they describe it as the crimson jewel of the fire, it almost evokes the pomegranate seed for me. It's like that that taste of desire, that first delicious taste of recognizing I feel desire too. I think it's a very beautiful element there.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost like it reminds me a touch of the the movie where the angels want to become incarnated because they can't feel, they can't have desire as angels.
Yes. The wings of desire, is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
yeah,
The wings of
yeah,
desire.
yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
She's caught in the currents of the ocean. She
Hmm.
plays with the currents of the ocean, but to have a land fire experience would be,
Yeah.
yeah, a
Yeah,
different,
it's fascinating.
yeah.
It really evokes for me embodied feeling. If you can feel those different states of oceanic turbulent movement or, beautiful movement and also the centering heat and light of the fire. So yeah, there's a lot there. I see some other people though I want to get to. Thank you, Erica. Rebecca, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Angie. It was a great presentation. Um, I was just curious to hear more, to dig deeper into the different sort of expressions or um, uh, manifestations of love in the
Mhm.
different characters. Like the man's love, the seal woman's love, the child's love, love for others, love for self, love for life, like, I don't know if you could talk just a little bit more about, um, about that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that, one of the things that I came to at the end of the story, at the end of my work with the story, which of course it's not ended, but is I felt like the potential for love that is truly kind of an I thou mutuality kind of love, where she is not just an object of his desire, but she has desiring subjectivity. It's intersubjective love, where both is a subject of their own experience. It wasn't possible in the story, because of the element of domination and her inability to have the freedom to come and go. It's only at the end, when she gets her sealskin back, that she expresses anything toward him that feels like love, where she says, it's like she sees him and says, "You were a good husband to me," or something like that. It's like she's only in her own skin, in her own full self, with her own freedom, can love become possible. And then she becomes very generous and loving. She's always returning. She is longing for them too. She wants to have this intimate relationship with them in an ongoing way. I think that's the way she's expressing love. I still love you. I love you even though I'm leaving. So to have a love that is also free, feels like the necessary outcome of the story. And I think for the child, the love is expressed in giving the mother the skin, and it feels like something a loving child would do without a second thought for himself. But I think there's that relationship between love and freedom and being able to have sovereignty, being able to be whole, that I feel like the farmer never arrives there. And we can imagine maybe he could be schooled by that, over time of sitting with that loss, that kind of boat sitting in the water. I think that's that is how he's going to become humanized enough over time. That's what I would imagine anyway. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just struck by how, I don't know, narcissistic his love is. Like, it's like the child's love is, oh, I know mommy's been looking for this. I'm going to give it to her. And the
Yeah.
mother's love is, I will come back for you. I will be here for you. I will get, but his love is so taking.
Yeah.
It's all about, like you said, objectification and taking, it's just
Mhm.
such a striking contrast. And like you said, dominating and possessing, you know? It's just
Yeah.
such a contrast between the other two versions of it?
And I think that's where kind of I felt like I needed other images of masculine, in poetry and other things to kind of help me see a little bit beyond what was happening there, because I couldn't see a way out of this. He wasn't letting go of it.
Hmm.
But I also think it's important for us to own that in ourselves too. I mean, I feel like to be able to say, like, I can do that too, that's also me. And that we are also um, eligible, for acting out of that kind of love and struggling to let go of something.
Hmm.
Ulrich, I think you were next. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yes, just sort of picking up where you just were. I'm thinking about the boy.
Yeah.
The boy discovers and brings the skin back.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about that as the boy as a part of the psyche, as part of her psyche, as well as his psyche. That the element of him that is repressed, that hasn't matured, that has been stuck in some way, he's using a very early uh, element of relation where he's using dominance and power rather than being able to be vulnerable like a child. So he, in a sense, has lost that child part, and yet the child part has been the one that comes back in to bring the discovery to both elements. So I was just wondering about that, like as even as an animus figure, like a young animus figure, and how this younger part really seems to be key, that turns the tumblers of the whole transformation, because it's in its innocence, even the discovery is made, which is also part of it's the child is the divine archetype of that innocent discovery of that, the divine fool, if you will, or the one that has not taken on so much of the world that fear has interrupted the flow of wholeness. And I just wonder what you think.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said so many wonderful things in what you just said, that I think you're expressing a lot of really important elements. It does feel so important that the child is the one who knows what needs to happen and is the actor whose action in kind of exploration and play and, like you said, discovery. I think that, I mean, one way we could think of it is like it's the transcendent function. The child is the transcendent function, that there's a tension here where neither one of these parties can let go. She can't let go of her grip either. She's looking out the window all the time. She's constantly has her eye on what she was. And that's where her heart is. So they're both kind of pulling against each other, and they can't let go of their grip on that. So something's got to give there, and something arises between them that partakes of both of their nature. When I was writing about it, I was thinking about, like, okay, the child has the father's kind of will and the mother's love. I was kind of playing with the different ingredients that they both might represent in the story, in the psyche, that the child is kind of a new mixture, and a mixture of those things allows something that's all brand new to be discovered, to enter in. And the child kind of represents that potential for the transcendent function, for exactly what needs to happen, but can't happen until the child arrives.
It's interesting how it's a journey of return, really. We carry the child within us. We take this journey, and somewhere in early adulthood, when we have children, when we partner and have children, both parents lose something fundamental to themselves, or they have to rediscover it later in life. But the child comes in as the element that's missing. That's the missing piece, and the child comes in and very openly brings that energy back, and the possibility of rediscovery and transformation, which, it's difficult. It is difficult to have children. Any one of us who have had them know you lose parts of yourself. You have to be very committed and very stuck, and you have to let go of the sea.
That's right.
A lot of that, in order to make sure there's fish on the table.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. It's such an important element, and such a moving and really wonderful element of this story, I think. Thank you for bringing that out. I think Penelope is next.
I could say many things, but I'll focus. I was thinking that the fire and the water come together in the womb. And that's where she has the new experience. That's where the child that's where something new is born, is when she has the fire in her womb and this child cooks in the oven, so to speak. So I think that's one of the big initiations for her. And the man who kind of steals her onto land actually helps with that. And that was a huge gift for her. She clearly loved the children. But there's something very elemental that happens in a woman's body. It's fire and water in the womb. And many women don't talk about it that way, but I think intuitively it's this completion of the universe in some way. The other thing I was thinking about is the husband or the man initially hides the skin. So he hides something. So there's shame and guilt. It's hidden. And then later, he hides the skin in the corn and whatnot. But he never really resolves his crime in this story. It's a crime. So he's not free to reach God, so to speak, until he deals with what he's done. And the third thing I wanted to say is that without the art and the music, the story wouldn't really be alive for me. It's as though all the art and the music reaches the realm of the soul, and that holds me. And all the words are beautiful, and you have done a masterful job with the slides and the poetry, which I think hold the soul. So thank you, Angie, very much.
Thank you. Thank you for, those insights are really beautiful and helpful. I love what you're saying about the womb and the necessity for his contribution to that conception that needs to happen. And the space that he holds for the growing young children, is also important. He holds a structure. So she animates it, but he holds the structure that allows that to happen. So there's definitely not just negative that he brings. I think that is important. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, I think Sue, you're next.
Hi, Angie. Thank you so much. What a beautiful presentation. The music in the beginning, was amazing and just pulled me right into the story. But so I kind of saw, like, in the beginning of the story where he walks to the beach and to the sea, and it's a full moon, all feminine, like sacred feminine elements, and then he sees her and wants to keep her because he recognizes somewhere, probably in his unconscious, that she is a representative of that sacred feminine, which doesn't seem to me like he has inside himself. And so he takes her. I was also struck by how it was his shadow that covered her skin. And then at the end, in the illustrations, when she was sitting with her son, they're looking in the fire, and he's playing his instrument, and her shadow on the wall, like, overtook him. It was like, okay, it's time for her to go. Like, it kind of came full circle, you know what I mean? And I was also thinking, like, she came from the power of the sea, where there is no fire.
Right.
And I think that's why the fire grabbed her, because to me it was like, oh, this is the power of the land. Okay, I'll kind of check this out for a while, I loved what Penelope said about the womb too, and it didn't occur to me till she said that both the water and the fire, oh, that was beautiful. And then I saw in my own, just thinking about my own motherhood, and when the little boy brought the skin to her, and how, when our kids grow up, I mean, when they're really little, it's like all about mom, all about mom. But there's that time, and they're not adults. They're maybe 7, 8, 9, which I kind of saw that little boy as that age, where there starts to be that separation from mom. Like, they're starting to become a little bit more independent. And something about that, him bringing her the skin, was like that stage of him saying, okay, I don't need you as much as I did, And I think that's it. But what a beautiful presentation. Yeah. And I'm so grateful, because I needed some Celtic magic right now in my heart. And so I really thank you for that.
Thank
And
you, Sue.
yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I love the things that you were tracing there, kind of going through the story and what you were seeing in that. I think that's really like you're really seeing deeply into this. And I just want to touch on something you were saying, bringing up about the kind of separation phase of child development. I wrote this story. Part of it is I was really interested in writing something. There's not very many stories about mothers when the children are getting older. There's just not that many stories about that
Right.
in the fairy tale canon. But this one was, and that's the phase that I was in, and I needed something to help explain to me what it feels like. There's something very beautiful about the child being able to suddenly be able to see the mother as a human being.
Yeah.
Too, and that does happen at that stage. There starts to be these little moments where the child is seeing you for who you really are. And there's that separation where it's like, I need to separate from you and pull away. And also I need to know that you're still going to be there when I come back.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot about that speaks to that stage in this story. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that in.
Thank you.
Okay. I see Darlene.
This is just beautiful. Thank you. And listening to everyone's comments, I mean, I agree totally. But what came up for me is that, well, I guess the longing in the father or in the gentleman, just even as he's going to the water, and he's looking for something that he doesn't know is inside of him. And then and he only knows what he's been taught. So there had to be a little boy inside of him who never got what he needed.
Yeah.
And so she's his savior. And he naturally has to grab onto her because he hasn't completed his own longing. And I think that's the sadness of the patriarchy for all of us. And then I also went to, when she went back, when she got something that she needed from being a mother, and she was there for her children in the early years. And then when she goes back to the sea, that was a little troubling for me, only because she's left her children.
Yeah.
But she's also invited them to come to her. And I guess what I was thinking was, is this going to be a replication, or is this going to be carrying on the same kind of thing for the son longing for his mother, and will he do the same thing? But hopefully he was old enough so he saw, so that's what came up for me around this. And I also love the music and everything. It was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Yeah, there's something about what must be missing, right, in his development. I mean, I was reading about, the difference between, the studies of how girls develop and continue to have this identification with the mother, but the boys have to separate and let go of that identification. So all of that goodness that they felt in those very early years can't be part of them anymore. They have to get it from the outside. So they have to seek it, outside. I think there's something about that in connection and intimacy and goodness that he's looking for in her. And we don't know in the story, we don't know anything about either of their parents. And sometimes in fairy tales, you know that, and you can kind of like draw conclusions, but it's kind of implicit. You have to draw the conclusions just from what happens. But I think you can still, as you're pointing out, I think you can still see some things that we can imagine certainly are true. And what's going to happen? Yeah, what's going to happen to the next generation? Is this just an intergenerational trauma? That's a really good question. I want I know that we're going to continue with questions after this. So I see two hands. I want to take 3 minutes at the end to read the poem. So I'm going to take another question and then
We should
pause.
actually, oh, sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
We should
No,
actually do that now then, because we usually reserve the very last 5 minutes just to close the meeting, and then more discussion and questions can continue after the 9 o'clock close, if you're interested and willing to stay on then.
I'm definitely interested and happy to stay on.
Okay.
Okay, I hope the two folks that have their hands up are okay with waiting, because I want to hear what you have to say. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again so that you can see the art that I have with this poem. Okay. I have some more images of descendants, but I want to share this poem with you. Okay. So I just want to end with imagining ourselves here as the descendants and end with these thoughts. This is what was bequeathed to us. This earth the beloved left, and leaving left to us. No other world but this one. Willows and the river and the factory with its black smokestacks. No other shore, only this bank on which the living gather. No meaning but what we find here. No purpose but what we make. That and the beloved's clear instructions. Turn me into song. Sing me awake. All right. Thank you, everyone. What a wonderful time. I'm looking forward to the post-presentation continued questions, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie. That was beautiful. Let's see here. I believe, Elric, do you close this out?
Yep. I just want to thank you, Angie, for this sublime presentation. Thank you. Just so much to think about. And I want to thank everyone who is with us, and thank you so much. Remind everyone that April 3rd, we're going to have Erica Lorentz presenting Body as Shadow, Jung's method of embodied healing. And on March 29th, if you are local to Western Massachusetts, please join us at Smith College, March 29th, Sunday at 4 o'clock at the Student Center. Thank you again, Janine, for hosting. You can throw the host over to me now, and I want to invite everyone to stay on. We'll go another 20 minutes or so, and just continue our discussion. And it's we're very lucky that Angie's going to stay a little while. Thank you. So take it from there, Angie.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have a couple of hands up that I want to make sure we get to, but also I want to leave space for me to step back and allow interactivity among everyone. So it doesn't have to be the spokes of the wheel for the rest of the time. But I do want to get to the comments and questions. Dan, you've been waiting for a while. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. I'm actually logged in. I'm coming to you from the other side of the country. I'm in Seattle, Washington. And I too am a therapist. I've been practicing for more than 30 years with a Jungian orientation. And I've done hundreds of presentations like the one you've done tonight. I want to add my voice to the chorus that says, lovely job. In particular, I like the way that you, not just the content of your program tonight, but the way you did it, I think sort of in what systemic therapy they call an isomorphism, it mirrors the content at another level. And particularly the idea of the way that the masculine and the tail tries to possess the feminine. And you so beautifully modeled a lack of possession. I was struck by the number of times you said, well, there's all this theory around this, but I'm not going to go into that. It wasn't that masculine, intellectual, possessive, I'm going to get a grasp on this. It was a light, laying out of as much images as words on your slides. I noticed I was furiously doing screen captures trying to get some of the beautiful art that you did. So I just want to say thanks for the way you did the presentation, for the images, for the poetry, for the lightness, and you brought in a quote here and there to kind of ground it in Jung or and Ulanov for other people, but just the opposite of that patriarchal possessive approach to things. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you. I find that such it means a lot to me to hear that, because I really felt um I really felt like I needed to really kind of have this fidelity to this material in the way that I was approaching it, in the way that I talked about it, in the way I thought about it. Even as I was preparing for this, I found myself going in and out of that familiar place of like, oh, I want to get it just right. Oh, I need to time it just right. Oh no, I've got to just let that go. Oh yeah, remember, this is about letting go. This is not about pinning it down. So it's a constant kind of pulse that I have to keep moving through, of that desire to, get really into locking it down and then, surrendering again. So it's lovely to hear that that kind of came through. So thank you. Rosemary and Eve, I see you have your hand up again. Yeah, love to hear.
Oh, hi. Well, it's so amazing. I guess I thought the story was going to continue. I really didn't think it was over with, because the children are half selkie, and so I thought there was going to be this whole sequel where they're going in and out of the water, they're turning into selkies and back, and bridging both worlds, And I was thinking about what Elric was saying about it's profound, this thing of leaving the sea in order to bring fish, but she goes into the sea to bring the fish. And I was brought back to a time when I was when I became a mother, and I had this wild choice where I decided to live more as a gypsy. With my husband, and to merge my wild, authentic self with being mothering. I mean, it really felt like becoming a mother was coming into the wild self, and the child in the story, right? The child is the one who reminds her of her wild self, because that's what mothering can do. But then I was protected because the father of my child was working. And the role of the whoever the provider is, the financial provider, which is often the man, but not always, but sacrificing something unless they're going to the sea, and something about her. But she takes away that need when she's bringing fish every day. She's taking away the need for the father to fish. So does that free him up to be more creative?
Interesting ideas. Yeah. Well, this is the thing with stories, right? They invite us to keep storying it forth,
Yeah.
and like that's the material wants to do that. It wants to keep on taking us further. There's so many wonderful children's books that do explore and imagine into what would happen if the children could go into the sea and visit the selkie relatives, the other side of the family. There's a lot of great children's book writers and illustrators who have explored that. Also, The Secret of Rowan Inish, I think, is in a way a version of that, where there's the story. I recommend the film highly. It's like the story of the children who the adults have left the island where they lived close to the land, and it's the children who pull them back. And are saying, we need to get back to the wild, and reestablishing that connection where everyone is living back with the sea and with the beings of the sea. So yeah, there's a lot.
Oh, yes, I love that movie. It was so beautiful, and it really does join everybody by the end, because the Selkie mother is not like the seals are really coming. They're very much part of the family now, and the people of the land are now acknowledging them instead of othering them and being like, "Oh, I've lost you forever." They're like, "Okay, we have to be in relation to the seal people now." And
Right.
that book, were you doing a PowerPoint that you made, or was this all a book? I couldn't believe the art went by so fast. I just wanted to see every page of it so deeply. And how can we see it again? Is it all in one book, or did you put a PowerPoint together?
Well, has been recorded, and I think it will probably be available. That's still to be determined, but I think that you'll be able to rewatch this and see, maybe take a little more time if you want to look at the art. I know that I felt like the art carried the feelings that I wanted to offer to you all to get absorbed in. So
So
I'd love
you
for you to have a
gathered it.
chance. I
You
did.
gathered.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That was amazing selection of art for what you were talking about. I thought it was like the most incredibly curated book I'd ever seen. Seriously, I hope you do some publishing. And who was the singer in the beginning?
Who was the singer? I'll tell
And the
you.
song, the singer and the song.
Yes. Um, let me go back. It's in the first slide. I'm going to show you this real quick because I can't pronounce it. Um, let's see. I have to go all the way back. It's oh, it's going the wrong direction. I'm not going to be able to do it. So it's by someone whose name is her name is Morin Nick Ambley, and Billy Mag Flynn is the musician, and it's called Portna Pookie, which means the tale of the Pookie. And it's really quite a gorgeous piece of music. And it's an old folk song that comes from these islands.
Thank you so much. I'm going to let the other person speak. Thank you. It was absolutely amazing. I'm so moved by what you did. It really should be like it'd be really nice in an auditorium, where with a really big screen or something where you can be immersed in these stories and images and music. I'll be there if you do it. I'm coming.
I'm gonna put the name of the song in the chat so that you can have it.
Okay.
I'll spell it out. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Elric, I want to just ask you, do we kind of do I continue taking questions directly, or do I kind of step back and we can kind of allow a discussion? I'm happy to go either way.
I think generally it's better for folks to raise their hands because it can get a little confusing if we're talking over each other. It just works better, I think. So you can still, if someone has something they'd like to offer, please just raise your hand and
okay.
That would be the best way, I think. Thanks.
Okay, great. Because I see a hand up with Rebecca.
Oh. I just wanted to call out the question in the chat. Should I read it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you please speak a bit more about how all of the characters in the story braid together into one psyche? From Ash.
Oh, that's a great question, Ash.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is Ash still here, or did I miss?
I think so.
Are they here? Oh yes, I see Ash is still here. Great. So, thank you for that question. I think that, what can I say about that? I think, oh yes, I see you. Hi, Ash. So, when we're talking about a dream, it's like each of the characters, it's a typical way we look at dreams when we're doing dream analysis, is like each of the characters represent a part of us. So I think I found it important to look at this story that way, that there's a part that is emerging, and then there's a part that's resistant, or there's a part that's emerging and a part that really doesn't want to have anything to do with it and is lashing out, or a part like that would be in kind of like the Ronald Ian and the David Thompson experiences. In this story, I would say there's kind of something new is arriving, that the psyche has prepared a space and it needs to be animated. So the psyche is looking for an opportunity to bring something that is mysterious, that might seem enigmatic and beautiful and enchanting, into the space that's been prepared inside the psyche. but that relationship can be a relationship of struggle. And so it's kind of the tension between these parts of the self, the parts of the one individual personality that is needing to come into union. So it's needing to recognize, like, I am both of those things. I am the part that has structure and has built something, and I am also the part that is really longing, to escape structure, and to swim freely in a whole other dimension. And I'm needing to go through this change. I felt that way, one example, like I felt that way in training, that I wanted to explore all of these wonderful, rich depth materials, but I had to get down and write my paper. I had to show up for class and get my reading done, and I had to kind of not lose the sense of magic from this depth material, but I still had to bring it home, to a place where it could get woven into something. And so I kind of thought this paper was kind of like the child in the story kind of being born, and it was kind of freeing something that needed to now have its own life and no longer just kind of be held on my computer screen, but kind of set free to go where it wants to go. And it could continue to feed me, and I could continue to have a relationship with the different sources of mythology and things that I came in contact with. So I don't know, that's one example. Okay, great. That made sense. Thank you for the question, Ash. Danny, I see your hand up.
Yeah, hi. So thank you very much. It's the second time I've heard you present this, and I've certainly was looking forward to hearing you tonight. You sort of have fulfilled, based on what Penelope introduced you as, fulfilled some of your own longings. I kind of see this story as an origin story, maybe, that the children, the descendants of these two and their longings are who we are. So that within me is a selkie, and within me is a male that is seeking what the father in this story was seeking. And so I kind of, it's interesting to hear people look at this and try to break it apart as if there's things that are wrong with the story or things that shouldn't be or should be resolved. But I almost wonder if it's a perfect story, that it's fulfilling its own destiny. One of the thoughts that I had was that Jung talks about, and this is just one of the many things, but this idea of opposites, that happiness would not exist without misery, and that misery is necessary for us to actually have very meaningful happiness. And it's kind of like that's what this story has, is an opposite, that the opposite fulfills its own destiny. And I kind of even got that. I don't remember the closing poem that you read, but it sort of did give that summation, that this is, maybe this is the other origin of life's story that doesn't get told, because the other one with Adam and Eve always takes precedence. And so I'd rather believe that there's a selkie woman in me, and that there's this longing man who is trying to find wholeness, is the reason that I'm being propelled forward. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Danny. What rich reflections. Yeah, I love what you're alluding to here about the perfection of the tale, and that I really want to think more about the idea of this being an origin story. That feels really enriching and cool to think about. I think there's a lot of ways that we could say that, yeah, this is kind of just exactly what needed to happen, that even though it feels like in many ways there's a lot of pain that I felt about some of the things that were happening in the story, that there's always got to be a fall from innocence, and that I think I can imagine that the the grace that comes in with the child that kind of reconciles it all. It couldn't happen. I think there's something about the child and the transcendent function that it represents. It's kind of like it's self-evident when the child arrives that whatever the conditions were that led to that child's birth were just exactly what they needed to be, because here you have this child. The child is here now. So now you have anything that would prevent that from happening, no matter how much more fair it would seem, well, then you wouldn't have this child, and the child is exactly who they need to be. So I think that itself, and when we think about the child and we think about ourselves as descendants, and we think about we are what we need to be, we're here in the conditions that we need to be in. And what we do with that is ours. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I'm honored that you came twice. Thank you.
I've also wondered, it would be a nice or an interesting writing project as a man to write his story, for me to write, or for any of us guys or anybody to write his story. It's his deal, and what's it all about there. But anyways, thanks again.
Well, if you write it, I would love to read it. It sounds amazing. Thank you.
How about someone who hasn't contributed or spoken yet? I know that you're all here and holding on, so you must have some thoughts. Anyone? Gretchen? Stephanie? Anyone?
Peter, I see your hand.
Peter. Good.
Yes. You nudged me into it. That was wonderful and beautiful and amazing. And my mind keeps going back to why the fisherman kept the sealskin, and then his boy gave it back. So there's no answer, but is the child within him, when he put that sealskin in safekeeping, preserving the wildness of the woman, or I'm just trying to process and work that why that it's
It's like maybe he can only relate with wildness in that way, that he needs to be tending it himself, in some way. I mean, some of the stories really show him, he has to take it out every year, and he has to kind of work it with different tools to keep it soft, and he has to like really work at this skin. He has to find different places for it. Like there's real labor that he's doing and I think that is kind of fascinating, that what is that about? What's going on there?
Yeah, it speaks to polarity too. I mean, he wants to own her, yet he's preserving her ticket back to the water.
That's a great point. I never thought of that.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
He doesn't destroy it. That's a really good point, Peter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He could have destroyed it if it was a completely, negative masculine where he just wanted to possess her forever with no chance of escape. He might
exactly. So
yeah.
I'm thinking, he did this unconsciously. He just didn't think, if he thought about it, well, she might, I'm going to lose her, but there's a piece of him that wanted her to remain wild and was trying to keep her intact in some ways. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like when you're saying this, I feel like there's something that feels so essentially Celtic about maintaining that connection and the kind of the melancholy and the longing and the mystery, the loyalty to mystery that I feel in that. I mean, I think there are actually there's a lot of stories about animal brides. There's the crane wife, there's the swan maiden, there's all cross-culturally, there are stories where this animal bride's skin gets thrown in the fire and burnt up. And but why is it that in this culture, in these tales, that doesn't happen? It never happens that occurs. I've never seen a version where that occurs. I mean, Seamus Heaney talked in he wrote the prologue to The People of the Sea, and he says there's an essential benignity. That phrase always sticks with me. There's an essential benignity in these tales and in the way the relations exist between the seal people and the human people. And I think there's something that you're touching on here about that. I always wondered, is that true? Is there an essential benignity? You know, but you're making me think it is. There is.
Sticking with the polarity, I'm thinking, well, maybe the seal woman is going to snatch the fisherman, take him underwater, and we'll have a whole another story about that.
There you go. That's the next chapter.
Also, I want to just reiterate what Penelope said. The artwork and the pictures and the music was like really enhanced the whole process. Really wonderfully curated. Great job.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we're getting towards the 20-minute mark, folks, and I'm just, we're probably going to have to wrap up, but I want to give anyone an opportunity. If you're thinking about something and you're feeling like a little shy, please don't. Just come on forward and share something, because it's you're among friends. Anyone?
Hi, I'm Monica. Hi,
Hi, Monica.
It was wonderful. And I'll be in Ireland on the morning of March 14th. So I'll be thinking of you, and I'll be thinking of this. I'll be in Galway first, and it's along the coast, the wild coast. So I'm grateful, and I'll be thinking of you, and maybe I'll go by Nora Barnacle's house, because I was thinking of her during this too, and how she left Ireland with her husband, who was a bit of a wild guy. So I don't know. They kind of went into this exile themselves, kind of. So, but I really enjoyed it. It was like everyone said, beautiful, beautiful. Thanks.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you. I love thinking of you in Galway and on the shores, and send me pictures.
What do you think? Anybody else feeling like they got something to say? I know you do have something to say. Come on. Aha, Stephanie. No, Rosemary first. I'm sorry, Eve.
Oh gosh, I'll talk quick. You know, this is really this conversation is amazing, and you say the man in the story. There could be this story where she grabs him, and she wants him because he's so hot and sexy and beautiful, and she needs him, and she's gonna bring him to her world. But the thing is, he's not flexible enough. He's not adaptable enough, and that speaks to the man needing this feminine magic. He's got to learn to shapeshift to join her in the world of hers, because she can shapeshift, you know, and then that gives her much more power than him in the story until he owns his magic.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Thank you, Eve. Stephanie.
Hey, Angie, thank you so much. This was awesome. The whole time that you were doing this presentation, because thinking this is interesting because tomorrow is International Women's Day. Yeah. I just like, this sounds weird. I have a interest in cults, and I know it's I don't know. Yeah. So I kept thinking of the whole I don't know if you know about the tradwife stuff that's going on, the whole that thing, because we have with Instagram, that whole thing with I kept thinking of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Ballerina Farm, that whole story.
Yeah.
That came into my mind the whole time, and just this idea of all these women now, they're glamorizing and cosplaying the 1950s, and the whole story with the Ballerina Farm. It was that whole thing where this guy was basically stalking this girl and was kind of talked her into marrying him, and now she's got all these kids, and it's following them on Instagram, and it's I follow these YouTubers that talk about this, and it's if you notice, it's is she really happy? You know what I mean? That's just that whole thing. I
Yeah.
was thinking about this the whole time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you're bringing something in that has to do with the way that this touches on kind of current dynamics that they do feel connected to this, the psychological dynamics, I think, about objectification, that kind of takes shape in maybe a more benign form in this tale in a way, um, takes darker forms in our world today that we can certainly kind of trace back to kind of the psychological dynamics we're exploring here. So I think that this does inform us, about what kinds of stories we're living with and what might be transformative for those stories on an archetypal level. Because I think that's where change first happens on a psychological archetypal level. We have to kind of allow those archetypes to transform. And we have to look at them and see what's gone off base, what's become distorted, where's the archetypal pattern become distorted so that we can try to feel our way back, to the more, I don't know, the more integrated form of that dynamic.